The Journey Through a Distant Land, the Metaphysical Articles of the Individuality, written by Javon Lately, MB. Article 1.3, Continuation 2. Reading 8. This word has gone through various stages of evolution in its formation. The word, or this image of man, started with its first stage as letters. Now, we would like to stop here to expose a new lie that has been incorporated into the history of mankind. This lie has been arbitrated by Satan, the adversary, and his false prophet. This is the lie which states that the first and oldest language is Now, to use the same method that our modern scientists use, let us go back to the instruction manual, the scroll of human history. In this divine manual, it states that the Hebrews was the first people created on earth, seeing that the Hebrew nation came from their parents Adam and Eve, and that the whole world spoke one language, one speech. And although there exist different forms of Hebrew like Paleo, Aramaic, and most known, or better yet, most used, Masoretic, the last forms of Hebrew did not come into existence until after the event of the Tower of Babel. This anecdote articulates a chain of events that caused the Creator in his form as the Word, which I will prove later, to come down and bring into existence other forms, other ways to express his word in the world. This anecdote also tells the reason why this was adjudicated. With this being said, I would like to return back to the first thought. The divine form of the Creator, which is the Word, the image of the living Father, has evolved from the very beginning of the first stage called letters. Now listen carefully. Seeing that the Creator took on shape and form in the first place to allow his creation, including mankind, to understand him and to communicate with them, also seeing that the first language was that of the Hebrews, it could be rightfully said that the heavenly Creator chose, for whatever reason, Hebrew characters to be the first language. In addition to this, the Hebrew language is the only language in the world that is called the Holy Language. Each letter of the Hebrew language has a cosmic power that stands victorious in the universe. Each of the 22 letters has a divine meaning, to the point that if one of these letters, I mean just one of these letters, be removed, the whole would collapse. With these facts in mind, we should now venture into the stacking, or the forming of these letters, the protocol of how these letters form themselves into thoughts. Now, with this conception of these divine letters, it should not be mistaken that these letters are dead or without life. They are not like something that is inert or devoid of real movement. These letters come from a super supreme, all-powerful and glorious, full of endless life, holy divine being, that anything which he creates has its own being, its own form, its own function, and it has its own life. Now, keeping in mind the reality that these letters are alive, moving beings with their own individual powers, if we should put these alive, breathing letters in a certain formation, those letters would transform into a greater force than they were in their singular individual form. These letters would now form what is called, what can be only called, a single word. This new formation that is called a single word has its own existence. It also has its own power, which is stronger than the letters by themselves. This combination of powerful letters that is now a word has a new function and a new responsibility in the universe. This word by itself is indeed a powerful, breathing, alive entity, which has a true nature and character. Thus, we now have the second stage of evolution. Now, for the third stage of evolution, we come to the stacking of words into what can only be called sentences. Take note that we are talking about elementary rudiments that we all, if we're able, to learn in our modern educational facilities. Now, lo, and listen to this. If we take a group of words and put them in a line, we have a sentence. This newly formed sentence is now vibrating at a higher level of intensity. This sentence has even greater power than a single word. This sentence has a new being, a new power, a new meaning, and a new function in the universe. The newly formed sentence has a more advanced nature and character than a single word. This is the third stage. Moving to the fourth stage of evolution causes a form to come about. Now, the fourth stage of evolution is taking a group of sentences and forming what can only be called a paragraph. A paragraph is a very powerful, breathing, alive being. The paragraph is vibrating at an extreme higher level than a sentence. This paragraph has a form, a brilliant light, and has a wonderful being, a wonderful function, a wonderful nature in the universe. This is the fourth stage of evolution of the divine word of power. Divine word. Now, for the incredible fifth stage of evolution, which is magnificent. The fifth stage of evolution is taking these paragraphs and forming a thought. Forming a thought. The bigger the groups of paragraphs, the more powerful are the thoughts. Now, this thought has a glorious form. This thought has a form of its creator. Since we know the form of its creator is in the shape and form of a man without flesh and blood, this thought, or what is called angel, has by reason of its conception the same shape and form of a man. You can verify this in the basic instructions before leaving Earth, the manual of instructions, the Holy Scrolls. You will see events that include these thoughts/angels appearing to mankind in the shape and form of a man, sometimes incorporeal or incorporeal, but nevertheless in the shape and form of a man. This thought has a supreme thinking apparatus and an ultimate role to play in the universe, with a super glorious responsibility to do the will of its creator. It has a glorious true personality in contrast to the false personality. It has a thinking apparatus that is so advanced that it has ability to reason and the ability to answer questions and to ask questions. The thought has a very sensitive emotional center to feel love, sadness, fear, disdain, and compassion, with also the ability to have a sense of humor, thus producing laughter. It incorporates in itself the attributes of its creator, even the attributes of justice. This mega thought is just one thought, and the bigger the thought, the more it weighs and the more powerful it is. Some of these thoughts are, of course, bigger and more powerful in scale than others, according to the will of the Holy Father's divine will. Now, for the sixth stage of evolution, we come to the groups of thoughts that are called legions. These legions are an organized group of thoughts/angels that are arranged in such a way to cause strong and holy mega movements in the universe. This is including also the legions that will go forth from my Father to extract and separate the righteous and the elect, who has chosen to sacrifice the false personality and willingly abnegated themselves for the glory of the Heavenly Father's empire. The Father will separate us from the ones who chose to gather to themselves all of the false personality and to receive ideals from the dark falling thoughts. For they knew that they were the source of power to receive the delights of the world, monies, power, respect, women, cars, jewelry, earthly status, earthly reputation, and earthly honor. Legions are also the ones who are working in the world, saving the elect ones from the evils of the world. Now, this notion naturally brings about the question of the war that was in the heavens. Before we start, I must address that fact that some of you will not believe in the war that is still taking place in the heavens as we speak. First, I would have to eradicate the notion that the war in the heavens or the higher states of consciousness took place one time and is now over. I wish this were true, but unfortunately, it is not. If this were so, there would be no opposition in the consciousness. Take this for instance. Just think back to when you made any decision in your mind to do something that had the reflection or the meaning of wrong inside yourself. Something that you decided to do that you had a feeling was wrong. If you really think about it, you heard thoughts inside your very mind. Thoughts of an affirmative nature and thoughts of a negative nature. This is that great war of thoughts the basic instructions before leaving Earth is articulating. The war between the good and the evil angels or thoughts. Your consciousness, your very consciousness, is that apparatus that can elevate your soul to those particular states of the heavens which we all dwell in various capacities. Some are in lower heavens where Satan and his angels were cast down to, hearing and listening to dark birds, disguised as you, and having the appearance of your own voice, acting and appearing like your own self that is reasoning inside of you. Some are in higher states of heaven, where the true self and the angels are speaking, teaching, and showing one awesome revelations. But there is one more thing that some can see. There is also what I call, for the lack of better word, the appearance of the face of Elohim. This is awful and dreadful, for it teaches and shows you a fear that cannot be expressed in words. It also articulates the true realities of all things, no matter what and how harsh they appear. It also shows that the evil is subjected to its will. And from great fear of this thing, I will stop here. But there is no safe words to explain this. Nevertheless, the face shows other deep things that we could not articulate, for no one is permitted to utter these realities. For there is a certain spiritual lock on a person's mouth that won't allow him or her to utter these unspeakable things. After all that was said above, it will be only productive that we converse about the first form and state of Satan before his parapetalia. Satan in his first state was named Lucifer, the bringer of light. His function was to distribute perception, which is light, that brought understanding to certain particular concepts in the universe. This caused him, by reason of his function, to be one of the most beautiful thoughts in the higher states of consciousness. His function was so beautiful that his very movement caused awe-striking music to be heard and produced from his walking and going through the heavens. This music was expressed in the form of various tones of understanding and of rising octaves of comprehension, the increased scales of holy ideals being composed by this being that was named Lucifer, the light bearer. Remember, all of this is accomplished through the power granted to him from the Almighty Creator, Holy Father, the all-loving one, blessed be he that lives forever, decided to bring man into existence and brought him before the thoughts in the heavens. They were commanded from the Holy and Beautiful One to tend to mankind and to be subjected to him. Lucifer, the Beautiful, didn't want to tend to man and conceived a word of iniquity within himself. That word of iniquity started the war between thoughts of truth and those newly formed thoughts of lies in the higher states of consciousness. For this caused Lucifer and the other thoughts that agreed with him lost their first place or state and first form. They were cast down to the lower levels of consciousness and became that which is foul, and their form took on the invisible aspects of flesh, like a hardened concrete material, yet still pneumatic, as they became the structure of the physical world. Lucifer, the angel, or powerful thought, lost his name, the name that once meant to bring light to any who comes in his direct field of contact. Lucifer became Satan, which has the meaning of the adversary. And whosoever now comes in contact with this being will instantly become a target of great adversity. For Satan now has a different form and assimilated a different function in the universe, to be that which is destructive and evil beyond any imagination or comprehension of created man. Satan, the murderer, became the physical flesh with its connected counterparts, which is the flesh energy source called the carnal mind. The carnal mind is the source that gives power to the physical body, the human biological organism. End of reading 8.